Hey y'all, welcome back to Ramblin' Mama. I'm Lisa. If you're new here and you're into deep dives on true crime, please consider giving me a subscribe. I think you'll like what you see. So in today's video, I'm going to do the last episode of the Menendez Brothers series. I honestly think I've been putting off doing this video, one from a logistical perspective, because I wanted to make sure that I gathered all the information that I had for the last video in the series, but also I feel deeply saddened by justice not being served in this case, so I think it's made me very reluctant to do a final episode on it. Today, I'm going to take a look at the aftermath after trials 1 and 2, and we're gonna take a look at how Lyle and Erik are doing today. Just a reminder that I'm not an expert.
I'm also going to talk about, is there a possibility that the brothers could get tried again? And if they could get another trial, what would have to happen in order for them to get one? Sorry to put these post-shoot videos in, but I'm also going to talk about, in the end, what my opinion is and the gender bias that was on display in this case.
That I'm not an expert. This is just based on my own research and the research of Molly Robichaux. Thank you again, Molly, for all your hard work. Please feel free to do your own research and form your own opinion, and please remember to be kind to each other in the comments below. Without any further ado, let's get into it.
Dr. William Vickery, who had doctored his notes on Erik at Leslie Abramson's urging, was removed from the panel of mental health professionals appointed by the Los Angeles Superior County judges to analyze and testify about defendants in court cases. On September 10, 1996, the California Department of Corrections sent Lyle to the California Correctional Institution, and Erik was taken to the California State Prison. Lyle and Erik were segregated from the other prisoners and classified as maximum security inmates. Leslie Abramson was critical of the Department of Corrections' decision to separate the brothers and said that the move was, quote, unduly cruel and punitive.
It's ridiculous to say that they shouldn't be together because they would commit other crimes. The probation report indicates they are not endangered or a threat to anyone. They have not committed any other crimes. They did not conspire over the 6 years they have been together in the same smaller institution, the county jail. And the probation department recommends that they can be kept together and that they will be an asset to any institution they are in. And this is just an attempt, a last-ditch attempt, by the prosecution to inflict even greater punishment on them than what the law prescribes, and I see it as exceedingly cruel and heartless. I don't hear them making statements like that about serial killers, about baby rapists, but because these are highly notorious defendants, thanks to yall, they think it's a free-for-all for inhumanity.
On October 13, 1997, after an 11-month investigation, Leslie Abramson learned that she would not be prosecuted by the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office for requesting that Dr. Vickery deleted sections of his notes during the retrial of the brothers. On February 27, 1998, the California Court of Appeals upheld the murder convictions of Lyle and Erik Menendez. The court's opinion established no new precedents and found that Judge Weisberg made no errors in a series of controversial rulings that limited the defense testimony about the brothers' upbringing and mental states during the retrial. On May 28, 1998, the California Supreme Court voted to uphold the murder convictions and life without parole sentences of Lyle and Erik Menendez. None of the Supreme Court justices voted to review the case.
Okay, so this is my understanding. It appears that the brothers have exhausted all their appeals and it went up to the Supreme Court of California and they still upheld the decision. And the judge ruling that all this evidence had to be withheld from the second trial that was about their mental health and the abuse that they endured, that it was totally fair for the judge to do that. So this is such a hard pill for me to swallow. It is unfathomable to me to think that evidence about these boys, you know, at the time, their state of mind, their mental health, the abuse that they endured is immaterial. And I understand that it wasn't excluded altogether, but it was greatly limited. And Robert Rand had conversations with the jurors of the second trial that said that they would have decided differently had they been exposed to that information. So I want you all to tell me, do you think this is fair? Do you think that all the abuse testimony that we heard in the first trial, that it was fair to exclude it from the second trial? I want you to let me know what you think.
On February 9th, 1999, the State Bar of California closed its 3-year investigation of Leslie Abramson after deciding that there was insufficient evidence to conclude that she violated ethical rules in the Menendez brothers' retrial. Leslie Abramson continues to practice law in Los Angeles. She defended Jeremy Strohmeyer, the teenager who killed a young girl in a Nevada casino. She also appears as a court commentator on ABC's Nightline and on Court TV.
Okay, so let's stop briefly and recap here. Apologies for my voice and my skin. I'm sick and my skin is really angry at me. It's hard to ignore all of the fallout that happened from the Menendez trials. Thinking back to their doctor, I'm forgetting his name, but their original therapist, who then his license was removed, I think, and he was no longer able to be a therapist, not just because of what happened with the brothers, but also because all of these allegations from patients of his and how inappropriate he was. And then thinking of Dr. Vickery and him getting into trouble for doctoring the notes, and then the fallout that also happened with Leslie. Granted, Leslie ended up coming out unscathed from all of that, but y'all, so much drama, right? And then I also want to say that as much as I admire Leslie and the work that she did with Erik, it was really heartbreaking to read about the details of Jeremy Strohmeyer's case and what he allegedly did. And you know, everyone's entitled to a good defense, but it was really just kind of heartbreaking to see that he was a client of Leslie's. And in this next clip that I'm going to show you, Leslie and Larry King are having such an interesting conversation. This was not too long after the second trial. So she's talking about leaving law potentially, but she would go on to defend Jeremy Strohmeyer after that, and also Phil Spector for a time before she had to excuse herself from the case because of, I think, personal differences.
We're back, and we welcome Leslie Abramson, the attorney for Erik Menendez. She's regarded in Los Angeles and around the country as one of the best defense attorneys in the business. It's nice to have you with us. Book, Leslie?
I'm writing a book.
The biography of Leslie?
The autobiography of my career, basically. My private life, I try to keep private.
Simon and Schuster, you got to do an autobiography. You got to discuss your private life.
Well, it just sort of weaves its way in and out, but, you know, we keep all the secrets. That's the way. You write the one with the secrets when you're 70 and nobody cares anymore.
This will be for Simon and Schuster?
Simon and Schuster, yeah.
You got to deal with trials?
Yeah, I deal with cases and how they're handled. It sort of takes people into the inner workings of how a defense lawyer operates. It's less preachy than, you know, walk with me in my shoes.
What's the latest with Leslie and all that happened at the end of the trial that you had influenced or asked the psychiatrist? Tell us what that story was.
It's a long, complicated story. What
break it down.
All right, it's a two-part story. 3 years ago, when we were preparing for this witness to take the stand at the very,
This is a
very
doctor,
end.
right?
It's a psychiatrist. The very end of Menendez 1, this was a very minor witness. He wasn't my chief psychiatrist. He's Erik's therapist. Guy who worked with the kid when the kid was really screwed up. So we're preparing him to testify. The judge has made a whole series of rulings in the case. I sit down with him and I say, this isn't going to be admissible, this isn't going to be admissible, this isn't going to be admissible. The judge has ruled. So line it out before we turn over these notes to the prosecution. There were a couple of other things in his notes that I said, I don't understand what this means. Clarify. This is the conversation I'm having with him. As it turns out, which I don't find out for almost 3 years, he took stuff out instead of just blanking it out. That That's what the whole...
Blanking it out ordinary, does that happen?
Blanking it out happens all the time.
All right.
Happens all the time.
He takes it completely out and
He
then
takes it, not only
testifies.
does he take it completely out, he rewrites the pages and doesn't tell me he's
And
done
says
that.
you asked him to do this?
No, he didn't say I asked him to rewrite. He says I told him to take out. So that's the status of what happens 3 years ago.
What's the status now?
I turn the original notes over now to the prosecution for this trial. They have the absolute original version. So in
That's
this
the
trial...
gentleman, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's my... And he's a good friend of mine, going back for years and years. Someone I like, someone who I think is very honest. We just have a real difference in recalling what all
Bar
happened.
Association trying to take some action? Are you in any kind of legal trouble?
No.
None
Not
at
in
all?
any kind of legal trouble. I'm in PR trouble.
Because?
Which is, well,
Because of this.
because
What is that, investigation going on? Where
there
does
is
it go
no
from?
investigation going on at this time that I'm aware of. The Bar Association has said they wouldn't do anything, if at all, until the case is over. And this thing boils down to the same kind of thing people saw a lot in the Simpson case, you know, when the lawyers wouldn't turn the document over and they got hit with $900 fines. It's the same kind of thing, but I have not been fined by the judge. He hasn't done anything.
Have you spoken to your client since the verdict?
I spoke to my client today, in fact. I had a very interesting talk with my client today.
About?
I'll tell you a little bit about her.
Please.
Okay, he authorized me to tell you.
Okay.
I have been...
This is Erik.
This is Erik. I've been trying to figure out where he's going to wind up spending the rest of his life, and the prisons are very, very brutal places, very scary places. So I'm getting increasingly depressed thinking about this person who is a person with sensitivity, with feeling, with compassion for other people. Not a tough guy, being in these prisons. So I told him today on the phone, I haven't gone to see him in a while. I said, Erik, you know, I'm getting really depressed about where you're going to wind up. He says, oh, come see me, I'll cheer you up. I said, but I'm very scared about what's going to happen. He says, don't worry about me. I don't want you to worry about me. I'll be okay. Now, this is just either dementia on his part, or he, I mean, I know that he cares a great deal about how I feel about things.
Does he
want me
appear to
worry.
have totally accepted this now?
Yeah, he has. I mean, it's just the way he accepted being in jail. What always convinced me, Larry, that he really had a horrible childhood was how easily he accommodated to the horrible life in jail. In fact, in the first, I'd say, year and a half, he thought jail was a freer environment than anything he had known before in his life. It's
When
amazing.
when the verdict came in and they recommended life, we had on relatives of the mother.
I saw the show.
And they said they never saw an indication
I know.
of that mother
You know,
doing anything.
let me tell you
Were
something.
they lying?
I'll tell you something about
These were her brothers.
her brothers. I know. I talked to Erik about that show and what his uncles said on that show. And I could sit here and refute line by line what they said. You know what Erik said to me? Don't say anything bad about my uncles. Don't say anything bad about my mother. Don't say anything bad about the family. Let them heal.
Really?
Really.
How's
He always loved his Uncle Brian, looked up to his Uncle Brian.
Brian said
thought-
he loved him?
Thought his Uncle Brian was his friend. Things changed at a certain point in the case. I can't even tell you what my opinion is. He told me, don't say anything bad about them. Let everybody rest in peace. And that's what I'm going to do.
How's Lyle doing?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a while. I think okay. I mean,
You didn't represent him, but you obviously...
I didn't represent him, but I know him very well.
Sure.
You know, and I've seen him grow and change and become a more sensitive person and a more emotional person than he started out.
Where would you send them? If you were does the judge have who does?
Where
this?
would I send them?
Yeah, I mean, let's say they have to go somewhere. They're sentenced to life.
All right, they
Where
have
would
to
you
go
send
to
them?
prison
Yeah.
somewhere. I don't know. I mean, I don't have enough expertise about these prisons. I'd send
Who
them to a
decides?
minimum, the Department of Corrections. I'd send them to a minimum security prison because they're no threat to anybody, but that won't happen.
And is there a state minimum security prison?
Oh, there are many, many, but the problem is the way the system works is depending on the length of your sentence and what you're convicted of, you start out as a maximum security prisoner, which is what's called a level 4. So they have to go to either a level 4 prison or if there's some special needs. I mean, Erik does have psychiatric needs, medication needs. He might get into a level 3 prison, but
San Quentin level 4?
this is not camp. This is not
Is
fun.
San Quentin level 4?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are he and Lyle going to remain together?
I hope so.
They should remain together?
They should remain together, yeah. Yeah.
Because?
Well, because it's protection for each other, and that's the main concern that we have, is for them to be protected.
Does a lawyer have much of a say of how clients are treated in prison?
None.
Zippo.
Unless something really bad happens, you can sue. But none. The Department of Corrections is totally autonomous. The judge wouldn't have any say, even if he wanted to exercise it. Really, they're a world unto themselves.
We'll be right back with Leslie Abramson on Larry King Live. Don't go away. We're back with Leslie Abramson on Larry King Live. Whew. Life is not easy in your world of defending interesting people.
It hasn't been easy in the last few years, I'll tell you. It's been stress central. I have manifested symptoms of stress I never knew existed before during this last trial.
Are you working on cases right now, though?
No, I'm not working on any cases right now. I am working on my, because I have called a moratorium for a few months. I want to remember who I was before I became the Menendez lawyer. I did have a life before.
Are you angry with the judge for not letting in?
I'm not angry with him, no. I've been beaten down into submission. I think he was wrong, and I think that based on
not letting in certain things.
Oh, not letting in certain things, limiting other things, deciding on one jury, deciding on where the jury pool should come from, taking away our defense at the end. I mean, I was not happy with any of these things, but after a while, I mean, I've been losing in that court for 2.5 years. After a while, you know, you can't get angry anymore.
What is it like emotionally during that part of the trial when you're arguing to spare a life?
Well, you know,
nothing to do with guilt or innocence, but life or
it is
death.
Overwhelming. You know, you say to yourself, they didn't teach us this in law school. It's like going in to do brain surgery with no training. I mean, there is no way to describe how that responsibility of somebody else's life is so bizarre. I mean, you're just a lawyer. You're just a lawyer, you know, you're just an ordinary slob lawyer. And you've got to get up there in front of 12 strangers and say, don't kill this person. It's extremely bizarre. It's a terribly taxing job.
It might also be tough on the prosecution, too, isn't it not? Kill this person?
Well, it depends on whether you're a prosecutor with a soul or not. It's tough on the ones with souls. Some of them have refused to do it. There's a judge in Los Angeles, a very fine man named Richard Nydorf, who was a DA, who did one death penalty argument and told his office he'd never do another. That's a mensch.
You're obviously opposed to the death penalty.
I'm very opposed.
Did you have any fears that they would get it?
Oh, yeah. You bet I did, because first of all, we were stunned by the first-degree murder verdicts. We thought that was very extreme, given the evidence. We thought we'd get seconds, actually. I mean, we didn't think we could do well because of the way the rulings had shaped the trial, but we thought that what we were really looking at was seconds, so we were stunned with the firsts.
So therefore you thought a good possibility of...
Oh, yeah. Oh, for
now
sure.
The sentencing is in July.
Right.
What are we waiting for? We know what he's going to give them, right?
Yeah, but we have to make a record with a motion for new trial. There's about 20 different rulings, significant rulings the judge made that we want to list as error. And we have to bring that all back to the judge, give him a chance to fix it, and then they'll be sentenced.
What did it bring to you with a lot of the community laughing, since here were two guys who obviously did what they were charged? I mean, they did this murder, they went back out to their car, they got another gun, it was brutal, then they lived high. Okay. I mean, how much of it came on to you that you are defending?
Oh, I mean, you know as a defense lawyer that you're not going to win any popularity contests. I usually put that into a shorthand saying, I'm not Shirley Temple, everybody isn't going to love me. And it goes with the turf of being a defense attorney. In this case, though, I think I saw all the evils that I knew would attend a trial when it got high exposure, high publicity, and this kind of cruelty that runs through one particular aspect of the media, like Mr. Grant. You know, the hate jocks of talk radio. That was actually the worst element of the publicity about the Menendez brothers. One of the local stations had a contest called Fry the Menendez. I mean, these are human beings. These are young kids. At the time it was... Oh, yeah, yeah. And an auction. Cruel, mean-spiritedness. You know what I don't quite understand, and maybe you know, Larry, because you talk to people all the time. Where is all the anger and the hatred that's directed towards criminal defendants, people in public life? Where is it coming from? What is making all these people in this country so unhappy that they get this worked up about things that are outside their own life experience?
Lenny Bruce's theory is there's no communism to hate anymore.
Maybe that's it.
So
Lenny Bruce is dead. How do you know that's his theory?
He told me it 30 years ago.
There was still communism then.
Yeah, he said the big problem's going to occur when communism falls.
Maybe that's it. Maybe
he
the country...
forecast hate radio.
Maybe the country doesn't have a political enemy, so we're turning on each other. It's really ugly.
What did you make? Did the Simpson verdict have an effect on your trial, do you think?
I don't know, but I cried when it came in, I'll tell you.
You cried when it...
I cried. I was in the Van Nuys courthouse.
I thought all defense attorneys wanted a not guilty.
No, I said this is bad for the boys and everybody else. It's going to be payback time. Because the because the people, the real people of the country, got the wrong view of the criminal justice system. They thought guilty people were walking out all the time, and in fact, innocent people are being convicted, and sort of semi-guilty people are being over-convicted, which is what I think happened to the Menendez brothers.
So Simpson was the exception.
Absolutely the extreme, bizarre, distorted, out there, never happened before, never happened again exception, but it made people angry at the system, and they were going to take it out on other people, not consciously.
Do you believe in Robert Shapiro's book that contends that whether you thought he was guilty or innocent, they didn't prove him guilty?
Well, I don't know. It depends on each individual's juror levels. You know, I as a juror might have felt differently than the ones who sat there, but I as a criminal defense lawyer should never be a juror. I'm one of the most cynical people on earth.
Back with your questions for Leslie Abramson after this. Don't go away. We're back with Leslie Abramson. Let's go to some phone calls. Milford, Connecticut. Hello.
Hi, Larry.
Hi.
Miss Abramson.
Yes.
Did the lack of cameras in the courtroom for the second trial impact your case in a negative or positive way, and how?
Well, psychologically, on the lawyers, it impacted it in a positive way because we were under less pressure, knowing there wasn't some smart pants like us out there critiquing every move we made. I don't know if it had any effect whatsoever on the judge and his rulings or any effect on the jurors, since obviously the judge would never tell me, and I haven't talked to the jurors about it. But generally speaking, I preferred a trial without cameras.
Without?
Without. Well, I always was opposed to it, and I've been proven right.
But don't we have a right to our courtroom?
You have a right to go and sit, Larry. They'd let you in. You could sit there like anybody else. The camera distorts, and the commentary distorts even more. And you know, I'm guilty of that myself.
You were a commentator.
I was a commentator on Simpson. I tried to be a very restrained one, but I remember a few smart remarks I made during the course of it that I probably shouldn't have made. It's too tempting to give your own opinion, to form your own conclusions.
In an interview with Barbara Walters before their sentencing hearing, the brothers said they felt tremendous remorse and pain for what they have done. In the same interview, the brothers spoke about how they received love letters in prison and letters from supporters and abuse survivors. The brothers told Barbara Walters their father, Jose, used objects on them during what their father referred to as object sessions. During these sessions, Erik would tell his father he was hurting him, but Jose would tell Erik he didn't mean to do that and that he loved him. Barbara Walters read a letter during this interview. 15-year-old Erik had written to his cousin Andy, which read, "It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight and I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen and it's driving me crazy. I stay up late every night thinking he might come in. I need to put him out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I am afraid." The judge said this letter was not evidence of SA and did not allow it to be presented as evidence by the defense at the brothers' trials. Erik told Barbara Walters when he first got to jail, he would hear his father's voice taunting him, saying, "I hate you. I'm going to get you." Lyle said he had dreams of his parents still, and struggled with whether they would have forgiven him or not for what he did. However, Erik said he still had nightmares of his father's brutal SA. Barbara Walters asked Erik if he thought he was evil, and he said no, he was the opposite of evil. He said neither he nor Lyle were evil. It was an evil and awful act, but they were not evil. Lyle told Barbara Walters the jury found them guilty based on their actions, not because they were spoiled or evil.
Interrupting again. Have y'all seen this interview? I couldn't find the clip, but the part that was so offensive to me, in general, Barbara Walters is very hard-hitting with the brothers, which is her style and makes for better television, whatever. It gets on my nerves, but tell me what you think. But the part that I really couldn't stand was when she brings up Erik's homosexuality, alleged homosexuality, she basically reiterates what the prosecution accused during the first trial, that there's no way that Erik isn't gay if he went along with this for so many years. So this is the gender thing that I was alluding to before. If these brothers were tried in today's day and age, where there's so much more awareness around SA and particularly within families, and that it doesn't discriminate. Just because you're a male doesn't mean that you are never subject to SA, particularly by a family member. And it's so insulting to me that because Erik is a man, that they were able to say all those things about him, that he must have wanted it. Basically, the most awful victim blaming, which in itself is trauma on top of the trauma that he already endured. But I think this is what makes younger generations irate. They see this and they can't believe that these brothers are mocked and ridiculed, as you'll see later in the SNL clip that I pull, for having emotions about being SA'd, and that the best that the prosecution could come up with is that it had something to do with Erik's orientation. And then for Barbara Walters to repeat that in an interview, like, I can't wrap my head around this stuff, but tell me what you think.
Erik spoke about his wife Tammy and how she was the most special person he had ever met. Barbara Walters met with Tammy, who told Barbara that many of her friends dropped her, and she was fired from her job when people heard she was dating Erik. Before Tammy met Erik, she was a mom from a small town in Minnesota pursuing a career showing and training dogs. One day she saw Erik on court TV, and her heart went out to him. At the time, Erik was 23 years old and Tammy was 33, but that was okay. She only planned to send one letter to Erik and tell him that she supported him. Her husband knew that Tammy wrote the letter and was not jealous and actually thought it was cool. Tammy told Barbara Walters she never thought Erik or Lyle were evil or greedy, and she believed that Jose had essayed them. After Erik was convicted at his second trial, Tammy stopped corresponding with him for a while because her husband of 9 years had died, leaving her alone to raise their baby. She turned to Erik for support because she trusted him. To Tammy, Erik was her safe place, and her feelings shocked, surprised, and even scared her. Tammy didn't want to get emotionally attached to Erik and tried to keep her distance. In her first marriage, she said that she was emotionally starved. A few months later, after her husband's death, Tammy started to go out on dates and would write to Erik about it. And later, Tammy said she could tell that Erik was jealous. But his letters gave Tammy the emotional support that she needed. Tammy visited Erik for the first time 4 years after they started talking. She was terrified during their meeting, and a photo from that day showed just how scared she was. Tammy felt very attracted to him and said that their meeting was intense. She decided to follow her heart and visited again, and things got more serious. Deciding to leave Minnesota, Tammy moved to California to be closer to Erik. Her daughter moved with her. Erik sent her handmade cards and drawings on holidays and wrote once or twice a day. His letters were long and filled with meaningful poetry and quotes. In June 1999, 5 years after exchanging their first letter, Tammy and Erik married on a visiting day at prison. Erik's grandmother and 2 aunts, one from each side of his family, came. There were no exceptions for weddings at the prison, so there were no flowers or decorations. For a cake, the family shared a package of Twinkies from the vending machine. Tammy and Erik were allowed to share a kiss after saying "I do." Lyle married Anna Erickson, a former Playboy model he met through letters in 1990. They divorced in 2001 because Lyle was writing letters to other women. In 2003, Lyle married a lawyer named Rebecca Sneed, who he is still with today. In late 2020, a ton of young people on TikTok came out in defense of the brothers. Google Trends showed a big increase in searches for the brothers after a video went viral of the brothers set to the song "I'm in Love with a Criminal" by Britney Spears. People started posting that the brothers were hot, and then other people posted reaction videos to those videos, and y'all know how that goes. The case took place before most of the supporters were born, but they made pages and videos which got millions of views. Lyle Menendez's wife, Rebecca, has maintained a low profile since marrying the convicted criminal. She's avoided all media questions about their relationship and her life. But in 2017, Lyle did talk about his marriage on ABC's Truth and Lies, The Menendez Brothers. Neither brother is allowed conjugal visits with their wife under California state laws. Regarding that, Lyle said, quote, "One thing I've learned is that your physical comfort is much less important than your connection with the people around you. I found I can have a healthy marriage that is complicated and built around conversation and finding creative ways to communicate, sharing without all the props that are normally there in marriage in terms of going out to dinner and having as much intimate time together, and so on." Tammy expressed a similar sentiment in 2005 when she told People that not having a sex life is not essential for her, as she's emotionally attached to Erik in a way that she's never been before. Tammy published a book called They Said We'd Never Make It, My Life with Erik Menendez. While promoting it, Tammy revealed that her daughter calls Erik her Earth Dad. Quote, "Tammy is what gets me through," Erik stated. "I can't think about the sentence. When I do it with great sadness and a primal fear. I break into a cold sweat." Erik and Tammy have been together for over 2 decades. Lyle and Erik have served most of their incarceration away from each other. They reunited at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego in April 2018. Before that time, Lyle and Erik still communicated via letters. The brothers even played chess and would send moves to one another. Lyle Menendez is 55 years old, and Erik is 52. They remain behind bars in the San Diego facility. The brothers are happy to be in close proximity and are a part of a group of inmates who have earned special privileges. The Menendez brothers are still relevant today. Over the years, they have been featured in several films and television series, such as made-for-TV movies like the 1994 CBS television film Menendez, A Killing in Beverly Hills, the TV movie Honor Thy Father and Mother, the true story of the Menendez murders. In 2017, Lyle and Erik were featured in the Lifetime television movie Menendez, Blood Brothers.
Have y'all seen any of these movies? If so, tell me what you think. The only one that I saw was Menendez, Blood Brothers. I think it's on YouTube from start to finish, and it's totally free to watch if you want to watch it. And it's an interesting take that they do in that, because they make Kitty, who's played by Courtney Love, almost as like a good guy and an ally to Erik. And based on real life, where Erik reported having hallucinations shortly after the murders and continuing in his jail cell, he has these hallucinations of his mother and these conversations that they have together. And Courtney Love plays a very nurturing, understanding, loving Kitty, which, knowing the case and what Kitty supposedly said to Erik just days before the murder, like, what do you think, I'm stupid? I've always known, was just chilling to me to watch. But have y'all seen any of these? What do you think? Have you seen something else, and do you recommend it?
In 2008, a season 3 episode of the TV series 30 Rock featured Tracy Jordan, played by Tracy Morgan, making multiple references to the Menendez brothers. In the episode, Tracy Morgan fears that his own children would attempt to kill him for his wealth, an act termed as, quote, Menendezing. In 2017, NBC aired Law & Order True Crime: The Menendez Murders, an 8-episode special from the Law & Order franchise. The series depicted the detailed killings, investigations, arrests, and trials of the Menendez brothers. Compared to its other media made about the brothers, the series portrayed the brothers sympathetically and focused on the defense led by Leslie Abramson. In a powerful performance by Edie Falco, Lyle Menendez stated that the series was, quote, painful to watch, but the depiction of him is surprisingly accurate. At the 2018 Emmy Awards, the series had 1 nomination for Outstanding Leading Actress in a Limited Series. Edie Falco was nominated for her portrayal of Leslie Abramson. In 1993, Saturday Night Live aired a sketch featuring the Menendez brothers, blaming the murder of Jose and Kitty on their identical twin brothers. In 1996, the media hype surrounding the first trial was parodied in the dark comedy film The Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey and directed by Ben Stiller. The Menendez brothers are seen in the background of the 1990 to 1991 NBA Hoops Mark Jackson basketball card, in which the New York Knicks point guard is seen making a bounce pass, and they appeared to be sitting courtside behind Jackson.
My understanding is, unless new evidence presents itself, the brothers will not be able to get tried again. Robert Rand, who is the journalist who originally went to do a profile on Jose Menendez, and he interviewed the brothers before they were taken into custody, he ultimately became an advocate of the brothers. He is appearing in this new documentary, apparently, that's coming out very soon. As of the time of recording now, it's late April, and this documentary is going to appear in early May, where a member of the Menudo band talks about Jose essaying him. If this is true, to me, this sounds like compelling new evidence that would support the claims that the brothers made about the abuse they endured. I'm really looking forward to this documentary coming out, and I pray that in some way it could help the brothers in their case. So now, please tell me what you all think. Do you think justice was served in this case? Do you think these brothers have served enough time? At this point, they are in their 50s. They have been in prison for 3 decades. Do you think they deserve to be in there for the rest of their lives? Do you believe these accusations of SA? I do want to add that if you are as moved by this case as I am, there is a way to reach out to Lyle. Erik is more private, but Lyle and his wife have a Facebook group where my understanding is that you can pay, I think maybe $5 a month for a membership. Somehow you have access to Lyle, either like group phone calls that everyone has together, or some kind of conversation that he and his wife have that you have access to. But what I think is what they're probably doing is pooling that money to go to their defense fund. So if you feel strongly about that and you want to support in some way, I'm going to show some of that on the screen right here, and I'll link it below.
Hi everybody, it's Lyle Menendez. I can't even tell you how excited I am to tell you about this new subscription page that Facebook has created for us. I'll be hosting it with my wife Rebecca. It's been an absolute honor to have an abuse survivor forum in my name over the years. And I encourage any trauma survivor who can hear my voice to find that page and follow it. I will admit it's been incredibly frustrating not to be able to participate in it, and not really to be able to respond to the thousands of people who have written me over the years. Well, I'm going to finally get that chance. I'm going to be able to record audio files talking about the serious subjects on the page, as well as just everyday life. I'll be able to dictate posts and participate in live Q&As with members, and members will even be able to email me and get a response. All of this I can do using the prison phone and email system. I've had two great blessings in my life: my connection to the abuse and trauma survivor community, and my beautiful wife of 20 years. I hope you'll join the two of us on this new journey. Rebecca is also the beloved administrator of that trauma page, and I am happy to introduce her to her now. Say hi, baby.
Hi. Oh, this is weird. I just want to say thank you to everyone who subscribed, and to feel free to offer suggestions, topics you want to see covered, because we want to make this the best possible subscriber page that we can.
That's going to be it for me today. So take care. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.